Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to our California, Nevada chat here on Friday, July 9th. As we have so many times, we come to another stage in our recovery from COVID and our moving on. And this one, probably the most positive we've had yet to date, in the sense of both the California and Nevada being open, if you will, excluding some large mega events as defined here in the state. So thank you for being here with us this morning. And to our Southern California team, Mr. Tom Addis, Executive Director, Chief Executive Officer, Nikki Gatch, Assistant Executive Director, Chief Operating Officer, Jeff Johnson, Chief Financial Officer of the Southern California PGA, Bryce Seaver, Tyler Miller, our production team. Thanks for getting us on the air, so to speak. And here in Northern California, Caitlin Doyle, our Assistant Executive Director and Communications guru, for making sure that we're coming to you live and clear as well. So we have a great guest today, Jamie Mulligan, a section member of the Southern California PGA. And Jamie, we look forward to hearing from you, and congratulations again on your adding to the list, Golf Magazine Top 100 Teachers, and we'll talk more about that as we go along. And of course, Craig Kessler. Craig, our Director of Governmental Affairs for the Southern California Golf Association, at the continuing movement of issues, right? We're coming out of COVID, but now we move into some equipment issues, and certainly we move into some water issues as we head deep into the summer. So let's get underway, and to our leadership, Southern California President Robin Shelton, and to start it off, our Northern California President Dee Dee Moriarty. Dee Dee?
Good morning, everybody. Hey, I was really happy that I could join you this morning. So very nice to call and just say hello. I know everybody's busy. We're super busy where we are, and really looking forward to our chat today. Thanks, Len.
Great. Thanks, Dee Dee. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our good friend and colleague, Tom Addis. Tom?
Yeah, thanks, Len, and good morning, everyone. It's nice to be here. It seems such a long time between chat dates, so it's really nice in that regard to be here this morning. At this time, I'd like to welcome and introduce the Southern California PGA President from Newport Beach Country Club, Mr. Robin Shelton. Robin?
Well, good morning, Tom. Good morning, everybody. You don't, probably for everybody's benefit, you won't be able to see my face today. I'm going to be trying to be in 4 places at once this morning, but I knew there was one thing I didn't want to miss out on, and that was a chance to listen and hear to the most influential people in our industry, between Jamie Mulligan and Craig Kessler. When either of those guys talk, I listen. So I'm really looking forward to what they're going to share today, and I'm sure you all will as well. So hope you enjoy today's chat.
Thank you, Robin. Len? I get to be technical again. Len, you're on mute.
Okay, thank you, Tom. And here we are in the middle of July, and as we mentioned earlier, here in California, the blueprint for a safer economy has gone by the wayside now, and the only exclusion that we know of is mega events, would certainly be things along the lines of concerts and sporting goods. But for the most part, we're open, and with some restaurants and retail stores do have signs outside that if you are fully vaccinated, masks are not required and so on. But we still have to remind ourselves to be careful out there. We're not totally through it, as we talk about booster shots and we talk about Delta variants and second waves and third waves and fourth waves. But so far it's looking great. And once again, our thanks to each and every operator, manager on property that respected the protocols for the past 15 months and allowed us to get to this point. And it was June 1 in Nevada, where pretty much things were open, and we were grateful, as that allowed us to have our spring meeting just a week ago at the Silver Legacy Resort in Reno. And I must say that it was just wonderful to be back together again. And Tom was able to join us. Wes was able to join us from the Aloha section. So it was very special to be able to be together, celebrate being together, and quite honestly, just to shake hands again and be the team that we are. So with that, I'd like to turn it back to Tom to launch the conversation with Jamie.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. And you mentioned it's so good to be back together and face to face. We've been doing tournaments for a few months, and we just started doing shotguns again, so we can see everybody at once, and it's been great. And it's my real pleasure this morning to be able to introduce a good friend of mine to begin with, and if not one of the top golf professionals and managers in the PGA in this country, as the COO and GM of Virginia Country Club, which, by the way, today as well, just to show how busy Jamie really is, Virginia is hosting the Southern California Golf Association Amateur Championship this week and this weekend. So to take the time to spend with us is much appreciated, and shows how organized Jamie is with his management. As was mentioned, Jamie's a top 100 golf instructor, golf coach. He's a member of the California Teachers Hall of Fame, multi-award winner in Southern California, and he is the co-founder of along with Todd Kiefer, the California Teaching and Coaching Summit. That will be our first big event in October that we'll have without golf, that will be a face-to-face meeting type format. So we're excited about that with the lineup that Jamie's put together. And we appreciate Jamie's time and leadership in that regard. So I would like to now introduce Mr. Jamie Mulligan, and along with the conversation, we'll have a few questions for Jamie as well. Jamie?
Good morning, Tom. Thanks for your gracious words and kind intro. I want to thank Lynn and Dee Dee and Robin just to start for the fabulous thing that you've done in the most interesting and unusual year and a half of our life. And it's nice to be back into a little bit of a regular world, but you guys did an amazing job of keeping the continuity of our association together and making sure that we knew that golf was still, the little white ball was the precedent here. And nice work. And it's a pleasure to speak to everybody. I'm super proud to be a PGA member. We're going on over 3 decades of that, and proud of that as well, and super proud of our affiliation with the section, and consider ourselves in a special on tour in a game that's from a lot of different states. We're the West Coast representative for that, and we're proud of that, and proud to continue to make the West Coast golf professionals better as far as teachers, golf professionals, and certainly the awareness in our industry.
Thank you. With that, we have a couple of questions that Len and I, Jamie, and will cover if you don't mind. And I know with Craig here, maybe he can be the guinea pig in this first question that I have is there any difference in coaching or instructing a 12 handicapper, a 0 handicapper, or a tour player?
Yeah, Tom, it's interesting in our background. I think a lot of people have heard us say this, but most tour player coaches get tour players after they become tour players. And our recipe forever now into 4 generations, I mean, 4 or 5 of them are playing in this SCGA amateur out here. The younger generation is, we've kind of homegrown these right from the get-go. So that question is, you know, for me, I look at it as a pyramid with every player, and your job as the coach is to look at how you're going to build the pyramid, and you got to make the bottom really sturdy, and you got to build up to you're doing small things on the top. You know, we're getting to consult with a couple different players in the top 20 in the world, and, you know, coaching one player that's the number 6 ranked player in the world and leading the FedEx right now. And he started in that pyramid scheme and has learned all the basics. Everybody that you coach is totally different. I think that when I was a younger player, and I was definitely a younger coach, I didn't realize how different that everybody was, and the laws, principles, and preferences that we all have in our toolbox. You probably learn the laws really young. You learn to see it with your eyes, and you learn to hear it with your ears as far as all the parts of the game. As you grow older, you develop your principles that tend to work, and you better have a whole quiver of those principles. But the really big quiver comes from the preferences, and that's how you give your information out. I had this old guy that I used to teach when I was a young teacher, and he would come over and just watch me hit balls for an hour. He didn't say anything. He just paid me to hit balls. And at that time, I still wanted to play and play some competitively. And that was a nice little practice period for me. one time about 5 years later, I was playing with John Cook at PV, and we look out on the first tee and we see this guy and he makes this beautiful golf swing, and it's the guy that I was coaching, and I had never seen him hit a golf ball before. So I called him that evening and I said, wow, you have a beautiful golf swing. And, he said, yeah, I'm a 1 handicap. And when I started with you, I was X, and I've got a lot better. And I realized the way that I learned is I learned by just watching what went on. And that was the way I'd taken a bunch of lessons before you. And I decided the best way to do it was to watch you hit balls. So the point of that being is, yeah, I think the basic fundamentals of teaching are the same. The preferences have to change based on who you're doing. And then you have to be really open as a great coach to make people learn stuff in a bunch of different ways.
Thank you, Jamie. And Jamie, so much has changed, and you've lived through it all. You mentioned earlier TrackMan, and now we have FlightScope, and everyone's looking on their screen, everyone's looking on their phone, and certainly congratulations with everything happening with Patrick now with his wins, at the Memorial, the Zozo, and even the second at the American Express. So when you work together, Jamie, with any student, and certainly someone at Patrick's level, do we teach now? Are we teaching to numbers? Yes, you see what I'm getting at, right? You hit a ball,
100% getting at. First of all, I get painted into this box that I'm old school and I'm not using any technological, but I wanted to know that, I learned how to coach watching Super 8 video. I came out of the Venturi School. We learned from Byron Nelson and Ben Hogan. So I got a lot of roots there. Great. He transferred John Cook to me. And then obviously the first video camera that was ever available, we bought. And just because I don't have Instagram doesn't mean that technologically we're not trying to be advanced. We're using any technological stuff that we can. I have a guy that works with here at the club. He does all our stats. All of our players are different, Patrick is using both machines. He's using Foresight or the quad that's next to his ball when he warms up or in every practice. And he's using TrackMan behind him, and we use them for different yardages. Without sounding presumptuous, I am TrackMan as far as the way of where the pass going and the angle down and the spin that's put on the ball. And if you've watched us teach, a lot of times we're teaching out in front of our player looking back, which I don't suggest doing with an amateur. That was my first bad joke of the morning. More important, a safety tip when you catch one in the shoulder. I don't want to take credit for that one. But I'm looking back at the player and not turning around and looking at the ball. And on that too, again, this is going to sound presumptuous as well, but if you can't stand out in front of a tour player, watch them hit it and tell them what their ball did, as opposed to running back and looking at the video camera, Lynn, or the machine and listening to the numbers, you probably can't do this at the highest level. So much that I'm seeing in instruction is the coach is so caught up into the force plate, the video camera, the TrackMan, whatever, which are all great devices in their own right, but a lot of times they're not taking the person, or what I call the who, into consideration. So I think that answers it. Not that we don't like it, we actually love it, but again, it goes back to your preference. You got to figure out what's working for your players. One of my players doesn't want to see a machine. If somebody brought the machine out, he can't hit it very well. And another of our players, they have to see it every day. Patrick's, he's a unique kid. He definitely has the X factor. He's definitely been trained to do this as a champion for a long time and has done it every level. And it's the most simplistic golf instruction we've ever done. If you were watching us work together, most of the time we're talking and giggling and talking about something worldly or a book or a movie or music. And then occasionally just one or two little keys and away he goes. And he makes it as regular as can be, even on the Sunday of a tournament that he's going to win, which is, that's a pleasure. It's fun to do it. In a perfect world, that's what we'd like to do with everybody, but it doesn't happen like that, Lynn.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Jamie.
Jamie, a little bit of terminology now. And maybe you hit on this a little bit already, but we hear golf teacher, we hear golf instructor, we hear golf coach. Can you clarify, is there any difference? Is it all the same? What does that terminology mean? Or that title mean, I should say?
Yeah, it's interesting in the course of the day, especially being the CEO at a facility and a golf pro, we hear like about 12 different titles of what we are, but at the end of the day, both in overseeing our property and coaching our tour players, we're coach And going back to that, probably more important for all the instructors that are on this call or anybody that's interested in the game, you're coaching everything, and for me, like if you took just in Patrick has a physio, he's got a trainer, he's got a chef, he's got a nutritionist advisor. His manager played college golf with him. His caddy was a very good player. I'm watching them play golf and I'm watching them do their system, and we're all collaborating in order to make sure that we're moving in the right spot. If people ask me sometimes, like, how much golf do you watch on the golf course? I'm probably watching golf on the golf course over 300 days a year. I'm probably on the driving range 100 days out of the year. So 3 times as much we're watching somebody play as opposed to just standing out there and hitting balls. And you're watching the way that they play the game. And more importantly than that, everybody that we're coaching on the tour level and everybody, even these young kids that are playing this in tournament, we're speaking to them at least in a text every single day to kind of lead where they're going. So Tom, I definitely like the word coach. It kind of irritate might be wrong, but I don't like the coach on tour that's not watching golf. Bill Belichick is watching the Patriots, and you can be on the driving range with a tour player and he can hit you 5 5-irons that are perfect. And then you can go out and watch him play, and the 5 5-irons that he has, they're in different stances, different winds to different hole locations. And you're not going to be able to reduplicate that on the driving range, but you can watch the way they go about it when it really matters. And you got to be able to coach that, as well as what's going on with their family and their travel schedule and their health and so on. So that's a comprehensive, pretty verbose answer, but I think you get the gist of it.
Hey, Jamie, this is Robin. You mentioned, that just because you don't have an Instagram, that you're not a technical guy. Why do you think there's so many instructors today that rely so heavily on the video and the numbers and not as much as, let's just call it the soft side of it, that like you focus on, the holistic side of things?
Yeah, I mean, if you just talk about from the Instagram standpoint or doing video lessons, it's so they can make a living. And I'm certainly not judging that like it's the wrong thing to do. It's just not our style. We're not trying to do that. We're not trying to market ourselves that way, nor market our players that way. And what we're doing is a little attorney-client, so I'm a little bit peculiar about that. But as far as like the actual using the technical portion of that, it's just easier, If you're a young golf pro, when we grew up in the business schools with the ball flight laws. There's some things about the ball flight laws that are still perfect. There's a couple things, in my opinion, that are a little off, but they're a general gist. But like if you watch a ball hit on TrackMan, it tells you all the logistics of the way that the ball flew. And if you look at it on Flight Scope, Robin, you see the ballistics of the way that it flew. And you have to know that, and then couple it up with the biomechanics of the way that the body moves. In order to be the most effective, you got to understand what's happening in the leg room and what's happening in load and all those different things that happen with the body. So the technological stuff is just way better. I can't imagine, I kid the guys that are with me. I said, when I went on a date when I was a kid, I called the girl on a payphone, Now, like what's going on with your phone, it's just so much more advanced in everything that you do. You're not doing directions to a restaurant off a piece of paper anymore. You're doing it off your telephone. And there's a lot of instruction like that that's helped the game a bunch, and it's not slowing down. We just built a little 6-hole golf course, which is a vintage golf course. It's a tribute to all the great architects. And we just opened it in conjunction with this event so our members could play while the SCGA was going on. On the other side of the property, we're enhancing our practice center, which is already amazing because we have land and most people in SoCal don't. And there's a lot of technological features in there, Robin, as far as launch monitors and flag D and all the different things in order for them to get the numbers and make it better for our practice center. So again, not opposed to technological stuff. I just think you got to understand how to help your student, and hopefully that what you're using as those tools do help them.
And talking about, hey, helping your student, how do you encourage, or what advice do you give to aspiring teachers to make sure they get able to be exposed to a bunch of different ideas?
I'm going to give 2 things that I think are great, and they're about as basic as they could be. If you aren't using your whatever TiVo or something to record golf tournaments, and you're not taking a couple days and watching whoever wins the tour event, what they did on any tour, LPGA, PGA Champions Tour, and you're not spending time to analyze it, you're probably not doing yourself a service, because that's the best guy in the tournament of the best player. regardless of what their gender or their age is. And I think you have to see that. And then secondly, probably the old school thing that I did, Robin, is when I was a really young guy and I knew that I was going to do this, I would go to the busiest public driving range and I would sit on the bench and I had all the mats numbered. There was 38 of them. And I would try to give a lesson in my mind to all 38 people. And then again, this is the last time I'll say without sounding presumptuous, then within a couple, 3 years, I had taught all 38 people on every mat, and then their wife and their kids and their friends and so on and so forth. And by the time that they got to me, I had already given that lesson. And in a weird way, I had already done that with tour players. Like one of the first tour players I got was Gary Hallberg. I was a big fan of him. When I met Gary in the early 80s, I had already given him a lesson 15 times in my head and another 200 times, picture him and watching him on TV. So he started laughing like 5 minutes into it, like, have you been following me around? And I was ready to go with what I thought was basics. And I still coach Gary off and on to this day. So that's a 40-year-long relationship that started with me watching him on TV or watching him on a driving range and admiring what he did and realizing the good things that he had in the equation I wanted to keep in there and the bad things that you want to take him out. And you end up being a doctor who's doing surgery on people. You want to make the surgery as minor as possible so they can continue to develop without going backwards.
Those are pretty cool pieces of advice. So Tom, thanks for letting me chime in and ask those questions.
Thanks, Robin.
Hey, Jamie, you started to answer it, so I'd like to go back a little bit because I know I'd certainly love to hear, and I hope the others will as well, how we got here. At what point did you realize teaching was for you, Jamie, and who mentored you? Who did you rely on to bring you along to this stage?
Yeah, I was, my dad played semi-pro football and we played all through the Pop Warner stuff and a bunch of baseball and football. And I was a good baseball player and a good football player as well. And I thought I was going to play in the NFL. And my parents went to play golf on the weekends and my mom was better than my dad, which would, upset him, which was pretty comical. I had an Irish dad who didn't want to be beat by my mom and he had a little bit of a temper. It was fun to watch my mom beat him. And I just would play along with them. And then I got to the point, my dad got stationed up in Antelope Valley to work because he worked on the Apollos. And we joined Antelope Valley Country Club up there with Steve Applegate, who's still a longtime friend of mine. And I started to just play golf every day because there was nothing else to do. I was a surfer and a golfer and a baseball player. And now I'm up having to play golf. So I started to play golf every day. And one day I came home and my mom told my dad that I hit all the greens in regulation. And my dad said, oh, there's no way he did that. He hadn't seen me play in a while. And then the next day, he came out and he watched me play. And then when we got to the first 5-par, I hit it on in 2. And my dad was like, we got to forget football and baseball. You're not going to play in the NFL. You're not going to be big enough in order to do that. You got to play golf, which didn't sound good to me at the time. My dad was a coach from the get-go and he was very practical. And he was very rhythmical. And my mom also was super practical. And my siblings were like soulful kids. So I think I got a combo of all that, which I think is really important in teaching the mind, body, and spirit portion of that. So I would say they were the original coaches. And then the first guy I started playing golf with was a guy named Chuck Wallace, who was actually the #1 guy on the Long Beach State team when Mark O'Meara went there, and Mark O'Meara won the amateur. Chuck unfortunately passed away, but Chuck taught me to play golf the same way that I talk about watching golf. He didn't tell me to keep my left arm straight or to drive my lower body or how to load the club, but he taught me if the pin was there, this is where you hit it and what the wind does and more of a tactical approach. And he was probably the first coach. And then the second part of it, like I said, I would say I learned a lot of what I learned as far as on the tour level from Mr. Venturi. And I know, Tom, you were buddies with him, and he was lovely with me. He was not only lovely with me as far as mentoring me, but Hogan and Nelson helped Venturi, and Venturi won the Open. And then Venturi got hurt and didn't really play. And they never charged him or never charged his family. And Venturi helped John Cook. And who had a relationship with John's dad, Ken did, and they never charged him. And Venturi then in turn mentored me. And going full circle with this, when Rory won the US Open at Congressional, Patrick played in the US Open and he had won the Nicklaus Award. And I went back to see him get the Nicklaus Award. And then I caddied for him in the qualifying. And then we end up getting to go to congressional. And Pat was the first guy in 50 years, I believe, to shoot par or better in the Open. And Mr. Venturi was there in order to hand out the trophy to Rory. So Mr. Venturi came down, and I was still kind of in my caddy gear, and Patrick looked like he was 12. And Mr. Venturi came walking up with a big smile on my face, and I said to Ken, this is, and Ken interrupted me, as Ken would do, and said, Patrick Cantlay, I know exactly who you are. And he put his hand on his shoulder and he said, I love Jamie and I love John Cook. And, I know I got information from Ben Hogan and Byron Nelson that helped me become a great player. And I've passed it on to John and Jamie. And it looks like you've taken the advice really well and you're going to be a great player, young man. And, the hair on my arms is standing up, still telling the story. And so that's a pretty strengthy coaching period when you think a family that understood what I was going to be and shaped it. And then a guy that taught me how to play golf rather than try to swing and stroke, which is still part of what we do. You're playing golf first. And then lastly, one of the icons of the game that learned from the probably first generation, or maybe if you before Bobby Jones, you call him first generation, Hogan and Nelson, second generation, the icons of the game forever that were opponents with each other, but had a different way to play. And they all gave it to that guy. So I've had a pretty charmed life as far as the coaching and mentoring. And we're trying to pass that on from where we are now as the conduit to the youth.
Yeah, that was Jamie. Thank you for sharing that. A tremendous story. And, we talked about a little bit before we came on the air, Jamie, about we work on developmental junior tours, developmental, maybe drive, chip and putt, is that maybe junior league, PGA Junior League is part of that. But what's happening is the skill level is dropped down and, 15, 14, 13-year-olds that are shooting some serious numbers already. So it gets really competitive really early. I mean, and do you have some of those players, along those lines? And why do you think that keeps happening? I think, as I said, we're trying to develop the game, but it's getting tougher and tougher because the good players are getting younger and younger and younger.
It's just the development of everything that I just spoke about. There's physios and trainers and nutrition, Lynn, and the PGA professionals done an unbelievable job of educating themselves and continuing to educate them to make them better. And we're encouraging people in the right direction in order to play the game the way that it's supposed to be played and learn the game the right way. And it's continuing to grow and grow and grow. I would liken this right now where we're in the slam dunk era of playing golf, meaning golf for a while. If you were more than 250 yards out, you didn't go for a 5-par and 2. Now everybody goes for a 5-par and 2. Somebody that hits it short on the PGA Tour, it's at 298 yards. We have young ladies that are hitting it close to 300 yards. They're just better athletes, and the game's getting better, and it's growing that way. And now everybody can slam dunk out here. And I don't see it slowing down. When they talk about slowing the ball down, I don't know if that's really the case. I can tell you that regardless of how fast the ball going, you still got to get it in the hole. And a lot of times because the ball is going fast, it's harder to control when it's firm and fast. And that's the way agronomy's gone. So it's a cool thing to watch. I feel young for my age, and to be able to watch this from so many generations and watch it go, it makes me smile because I feel like we're taking a beautiful sport and making it better and setting us up for the future, long after we're doing talks like this.
Jamie, you mentioned education, I'm sure, and we have a few minutes left, and we do want to cover the California Teaching and Coaching Summit. But I have a question in regards to why do you see so many athletes from other sports playing golf, participating in golf, and golf is so important to them? It seems. What causes that? What is that?
Yeah, it's so many that I don't think we have enough minutes for me to give you the comprehensive answer I'd like on that. But at the end of the day, you can play it forever, and it checks all the boxes: integrity, poise, athleticism, camaraderie, you're outdoors, the whole 9 yards. Whether you're a 33 handicap that gets excited because you made 2 putts for bogey and a couple of tee shots were hit straight, or you're trying to do it at the highest level. And it's now become a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle for people to watch it on TV. It's a lifestyle for people to actually be able to play it and live on golf courses and live in golf communities. And I don't think that's slowing down either. And, you know, all you people that we talked to beforehand that I started the conversation with, you've done an amazing job of nurturing and growing, and all of you that are listening, you doing your part as being the Pied Pipers of golf with your members or your clients on a daily basis, and it's going to keep better. And let's keep moving along. It's a beautiful sport, and I'm proud to be involved with it. I'm in love with the game, and there's a difference between love and in love. Love means you like it when it's good. In love means you like it when it's bad, and you like it whenever. And it's obviously really good when it's you win a tournament or something, makes you feel really happy about the sport.
Yeah, earlier this week, we saw two of the best quarterbacks in football enjoying that round of golf.
Yeah, they're addicts. You know?
Yeah, and both of them had, from my viewpoint, pretty good golf swing. What creates that? What builds that? I know you just described the fellowship, and
Yeah,
with those two quarterbacks in particular, the competitive aspect is obviously there.
I would be, the competitive athlete to be those quarterbacks, the best maybe in our modern game history. That's not surprising at all. But to be surprised that the shortstop's really good at golf, or the quarterback is good at golf, or the center in hockey, or the point guard in basketball, it's not surprising. Or the pitcher. There's a lot of disciplines that need to be learned the right way. And I don't know much about Tom Brady's background. I've heard some good stories. If everybody hasn't read about him, just to follow up on what kind of guy he is will be helpful. I do know a bit about Aaron. Aaron's good buddies with John Mallinger, and they played some pro-ams together. And he loves the sport, and he wants to get better. And, he's kind of using his competitive nature to do this, and he's going to transition. And you've watched this happen in a bunch of different spots. Mallinger as well played some golf with Pete Sampras, and kind of the same thing. So it's cool to see them, and the crossover, because they have such a wild following and what they do for a living. The fact that they're doing for golf, it helps our sport and all the things that we've talked about today too. So it's nice to see.
Yeah, it really is, and it helps tremendously, I believe. While we're winding down here, would love for you just to take a minute or two to expand on the California Teaching and Coaching Summit coming up in October. You have, as mentioned earlier, are a huge part of that, and running that, developing that, coordinating, whatever superlative or whatever description, and you're there with the California Teaching and Coaching Summit. A few words on that, what we can expect in October.
Yeah, thanks for that. This is a labor of love, and you touched about it earlier in our conversation. Tom, first of all, you and I have been friends for a long time, and I've been a huge admirer of you as well, too, all the amazing things that you've done in the industry. And, you are one of those guys that use the word icon too much, but you've been an icon. And I think Todd Kiefer, who's been a buddy of mine, we've been, pretty good buddies with all the presidents of the PGA. And while probably will never sit on the board of the directors with our schedule, we like to help. And Todd Kiefer and I decided what was the best thing we could do. And we think the best way for a golf professional, not a professional golfer, to make a living is to get better at coaching. And having spoke all over the country and the world about the game, and seen different summits, and been to the national summit a bunch of times, and I thought, why aren't we doing this on the West Coast? And it's very hard for our West Coast golf professionals to get to the East Coast a lot of time to do the national summit. And with the relationships that we've built on tour, we thought, wow, it would be great if we could share something. So we went in conjunction with Todd, and then my partner in crime is Randy Chang, who's the chairman of the Southern California Teaching Committee. And to this point, we've had 50 or 60 of the best minds in golf speak about it. And we have a lineup of another 50, 60, or 100 that are waiting to come. And we've had 3 or 4 World Golf Hall of Famers, 2 or 3 National Golf Teaching Hall of Famers, including another one coming this year. Fred Couples was our keynote. Phil was our keynote one year. So this year we have Jim McLean, who is a Hall of Famer coach, and everybody knows him, one of the godfathers really of tour teaching. And he's going to work with Derek Ueda, who is not only a great coach in his own right, he coaches putting to Phil Mickelson and Xander Schauffele. and the Charlie Hoffman. We spend a lot of time with Xander and know him well and know his family well. So to watch Derek do his stuff's really great. And the interesting thing about Derek is he has Carl Welty's video collection and his video collection, which is the one most expensive one in the game. And for a guy that doesn't try to be technological, I like the fact that he has that, and now he's going to show it off with Jim, and they're going to analyze swing. And then we have Marcus Potter talking back to the internet or the Instagram you guys all speak of. Marcus Potter is probably one of the most exciting guys in the game for short game. He has the Potter's Putting Lab. And if you haven't looked into that, you should see it. He's going to roll some putts for us. And then we go into another top 100 teacher, probably one of the most recognizable guys in our sport, Michael Breed, unbelievable orator. And he's going to talk about teaching with technology, even internationally or away from your house, in order to make a living, and how you do it, and how you set up cameras and help people so they can put some dollars in their pocket and become better coaches that way. And then we go into a new inclusion to our, our top 100 list. We're really proud of it. And, when I got put on that list some years ago, I didn't think it was going to mean so much, but it really does. It's a big thing to be recognized at. And we have a new guy in our section, Chris Mason, who was just put on the list as top 100. He works at Medeiros. He's known for his work with Brendan Steele, as among 10 other tour players. He's going to talk about a development of a junior player into a tour player. And then we go into Dr. Brett McCabe. Interesting background with this guy. If anybody's listening, Google him as well. He was a pitcher on national champion baseball teams, as we went back to earlier in this conversation. Pitchers probably are similar to golfers in the delivery and the way that they go about it. And he's worked with almost, 30, 40, 50, 100 tour players, including US Open champion John Rahm and last week's champion here, or 2 weeks ago, champion Harris English. So great background, very interesting. I spent a lot of time with him on the road, and he's a good guy to go to dinner with and pick their brain. Not only an amazing psychologist as far as the game goes, but really good with the life aspect, which is super big in what we do for a living as well. And then I am proud to coach Mo Martin. And Mo Martin is a British Open champion that grew up in our section down here. She won the British Open in 2014. She holds the claim as the straightest golf ball hitter of all time. She's averaged 88% of the fairways that she's ever hit on tour. And she's going to hit some golf balls for her. And we're going to talk about what we do in her motion and the kind of the way that her and I have a coaching relationship. And then lastly, we're really proud to introduce our keynote this year. He's known as the voice of golf. He spent more time on the air than any announcer has in the last decade, Mr. Brandel Chambly. And if you ever listen to Brandel, like him, don't like him, love him, whatever, he's got an opinion. And we're looking forward to doing a Q&A with Brandel and having Brandel tell you about the intricacies of the game. And he really does do his homework. He could be the knowledgeable mind in our sport. So we're super proud of the lineup. If you haven't been before, whether you live in NorCal or you live in SoCal, it's the 18th and the 19th of October at Pechanga. And it's a good time to come down and see all these beautiful speakers. And it's a pretty fraternal time where you can come down, you stay up in a nice, beautiful resort there. They have the golf course, The Journey, and we all eat breakfast together and lunch together and dinner together. And it's a good time to network and get to know these great teachers firsthand. So we're really proud of what's going on with the summit. Tom, thanks for being one of the inspirations on a daily basis. And if you haven't been, please come. And if you have come again. The lineup's going to be tremendous this year.
Okay, Jamie, thank you. And then totally agree on Tom being an icon and a great leader and mentor to all of us throughout the country. And we'll do everything we can, Jamie, to get the word out about the Teaching and Coaching Summit. That's just an amazing lineup. Kudos to you and everybody for putting all that together. And
Lynn, I was going to say to you before I get off here, and I'm going to go make sure that things are going smoothly with our tournament. I probably will get in the way and mess something up. It's going pretty smoothly, actually. But I was going to say something to you as well. I'll be wherever. I'll be in Florida, New York, in a couple of days. We're going to be in London for the Open Championship. And somebody's going to say California, and really the rest of the world doesn't know the difference between Northern California and Southern California. You guys have had an amazing relationship, the way that you work together. And we're basically California golf pros. And that kind of leads into Arizona and the Pacific Northwest and the whole West Coast. So I think the more that we can continue to do as sections and an association to build together, the world thinks that we're California, and we're getting stronger and stronger with what's coming out here. We've got amazing instructors. Obviously, we have amazing weather. We got amazing courses. So I want to take my hat off to both of you guys for the great relationship that you've developed and the way that you continue to stimulate what I just spoke of. And I want to thank you both very much for having us on this morning and for all that you're on the call. It was nice to check with you. And if you ever have any questions, you can get a hold of me at Virginia Country Club. We're always happy to answer questions to our peers.
Well, Jamie, thank you for that and for taking your time to be with us. I know you're hosting the event, the amateur right now, so we'll let you get to do that. And keep in mind that you're on our short list of emails, and say, hey, Jamie, we'd love for you to join us again.
All right, thanks. I appreciate that. And Craig, go break a leg there and make everybody happy. Okay, Craig, I'll see you later on today at the tournament. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Okay, bye-bye, you guys.
Bye. Well, can't thank Jamie enough for spending his time with us this morning. And Tom, thank you for getting Jamie to be with us and the questions, and just conducting that in your relationship with him for so many, many years. Would almost seem like we're doing the right thing periodically. So, ladies and gentlemen, now to environmental and governmental affairs with the Director of Governmental Affairs for the Southern California Golf Association. And Craig, we've moved on, as you said we would. Right, we've moved away from COVID. We're on a different tilt right now, but yet we are looking at water issues. It sounds like we have good news in terms of the state's budget. So maybe service cutbacks won't be there. We've got a governor who's looking at a recall, and then we have an industry situation with some equipment, which we know as AB 1346. So and then we have to get you over to see Jamie to get your lesson this afternoon at the same time. So I'll let you grab any one of those topics. And ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Craig Kessler.
Well, thanks, Len, for the kind introduction. And why is it I can't help but thinking, after listening to Jamie, that we've just gone from the sublime to the ridiculous as he gets to deal with all those things that make us, everyone on this call, love the game of golf, to public policy, which kind of gets our dander up when I talk about it, because it's not quite the same pleasant subject. But just before I do, I also want to point out that I found many of Jamie's comments fascinating, not so much from the point of view, golf specific point of view, but because there were insights about the way in which he has all of his life and he still approaches teaching, approaches the game of golf, that struck me as being right up the wheelhouse of many of the things that I do that are probably mysteries to many of you in public policy. It's a different skill set, but as I get older, I recognize that some of the ingredients to being effective in any line of endeavor, whether it's coaching great tour players or playing great golf, I do neither, or getting good outcomes in that grinder known as politics. A lot of the principles are the same. And so I want to thank Jamie for, I don't think he can help my golf game, but you may have helped the game in which I actually have some skills in that, and I'll get to that in a second. And that's public policy and the intersection of golf and public policy at all sorts of levels. As you said, Len, just now and at the beginning, for all practical purposes, yes, we're going to have, given that we have about 1 out of 5 persons who are simply not going to take a vaccine, we will never entirely get rid of COVID. But for all practical purposes, the last 15, 16 months that have been pretty much a nightmare are over, particularly for the game and industry of golf. So, but just as one bad thing ends, I trust if you are paying attention to anything, you know that in the state of California, drought has been moving from the northern part of the state down to the southern part of the state. Our governor was in San Luis Obispo County yesterday to announce a couple of things, but one of them was that he had added 9 counties to the emergency, that he announced that 9 more counties were added to drought emergency status. Among them were 3 what we call Southern California counties: San Luis Obispo County, Santa Barbara, and Kern. Kern's been in there a while. But the other 7 counties in the southern part of the state are not on that list, well, not on that list yet, and can only avoid getting on that list to the degree to which Mother Nature is beneficent to us next year in terms of rainfall and snowfall. And I'll get to some of the details of that in a moment. And that's only because long ago, the southern part of the state recognized that we couldn't rely upon Mother Nature for our water needs. And we have been investing for decades in all kinds of storage techniques and are continue to invest in different kinds of cutting edge techniques that cost a great deal of money to construct. It's one of the reasons that the water is so expensive everywhere in California, save ironically, the Coachella Valley, which is a subject that I have to discuss with every media organ that contacts me during all these drought spikes, or if you'd prefer mega drought or whatever we're in or so forth. But it always comes as a surprise to them that the water situation is most stable, most secure for the short run and the long run in California's lower desert, the place with the 121 golf courses. It's counterintuitive, but once you explain the facts, they understand it. The impact here is to recognize that as we emerge from COVID, and even during COVID, I mean, we've all been shocked in the golf industry that our business is up as much as it is. Stunningly, I mean, I don't know about all of you on this call, but I can say that within the halls of the SCGA, when COVID, and when back in March of 2020, we had a bunch of different scenarios, and the most optimistic one was that our membership in the game would remain flat. Well, it turns out we were wrong by about 30% the other way, which was, it's always nice. It's always nice to when the unpredictable future ends up with something better than you could have ever envisaged. And of course, that's come with some growth pains and some problems. And I know we're all dedicated to seeing how much of that we can retain. And I think the early indicators are we're going to retain a lot more of that than we think. But as we're doing that, with 50 of the state's 58 counties now in formal drought emergency, with the governor asking at this point for 15% voluntary reductions from all businesses and all individual residents. And we're all beginning to wonder whether or not after September 14th, when the governor almost certainly survives the recall election, the margin will be important moving forward to his potential reelection in the following year. But whether or not 15% voluntary might become something that's a little bit more mandatory, as with his predecessor. A good note on that, he does seem to differ from his predecessor in preferring a more regionalized approach to water than Jerry Brown did, who preferred a one-size-fits-all, and then reposed some of the authority for that in a Sacramento water agency that really didn't understand the dynamics of the supply, particularly in the Coachella Valley, but also in San Diego and Los Angeles. And I think a lot of intense lobbying by those jurisdictions between then and now probably has gone a long way towards this governor having a slightly different attitude. But again, it remains to be seen whether that's a function of a recall election or a function of his core beliefs. But with the LA Times in particular, but also other newspapers in the state, literally having a story on the front page every day, whether it's fire danger, drought, whether it's the other day, it was the Great Salt Lake is disappearing, and periodically the Salton Sea is disappearing, or the really frightening discoveries by our best climatologists and scientists that all of what they thought, they always had been able to assume for decades now, that if the snowpack was at 70%, that meant so much runoff. And they've discovered that those numbers are altogether wrong because that runoff is now happening in a climate that is warmer and drier. So there's quite a bit more evaporation before it makes it into our collection bins. And also that because of many, many years of periodic droughts, or one mega drought, if you prefer, that runoff is actually being absorbed by a very thirsty ground before it ever makes it to our capture points and gets sent south. Add to that the reality, we've known for a long time that the Colorado River Basin, which supplies 7 states in the West, including California, has always been overallocated. But now it's overallocated and literally shriveling up and drying up. For those of you who pay attention to these sorts of things the way I do, Arizona is in an extremely critical situation. And while I've been one of those who's been a little bit critical about the way Arizona has positioned the golf industry in terms of its media relations, something I think they've recognized and are rapidly fixing. The reality is that whereas we've played a number of cards in the golf industry in California to reduce our water footprint, and I think everyone on this call knows them, whether it's more efficient irrigation, whether it's new technologies, warmer season grasses, different overseeding practices, turf reduction, all of those kinds of things, convincing members that firm and fast is better and brown is the new green, although that one wasn't too popular. All those things taken together, but keep in mind in a place like Arizona and also Southern Nevada, they have played far more cards than that. And yet because of the realities of the Colorado River Basin and Arizona's very meager allocation in the state compact, the water is just not there. And so I think that they're facing something that we really haven't faced in California. When I get asked a lot of times by the media, how many golf courses have closed because of a water situation. And there have been 1 or 2 that have over the years because they were totally dependent, perhaps, or they were on one water source that dried up. Other than that, and those are anomalous situations, the answer for that's been no thus far. Yes, a few have used that as the reason, but those were probably golf courses that had been teetering on the brink for some period of time and may have also been in markets that got a little bit overbuilt. But in Arizona, and again, is Arizona our future? And that's something we need to consider. There are golf courses that are maybe looking down the road to extinction purely based on the inability to get water onto their greens, tees, and fairways. So this is my plea to begin paying close attention. When stories like that run in media organs day after day after day, that's what sets public opinion, and what sets public opinion affects politicians to a degree that most of you probably don't understand. No matter how many times I preach that the dirty secret about elected leaders is not that they're unresponsive, but that they're overly responsive. And in that kind of milieu, and hammering day after day after day, recognize, as unfair as it may be, because our record is so much better than the perception of that record. And the reality is our product is exposed. So there are a whole host of things that use multiples of the water that a golf course uses, but those entities are behind barbed wires. They're within, oil refineries or factories and so forth. And they're away from public view. But when you drive by 130 acres that looks a little bit green, when you're reading in the paper that, or you're being asked by the governor to cut back and don't take shorter showers and don't water your lawn, we stick out like a sore thumb. Something to remember, the optics are going to be extraordinarily important moving forward. And even though the vast majority of Southern California population, well over 90%, is not yet in that critical phase, it probably behooves all of us to brown out the edges of those golf courses that are maybe out of play, but are close to the boulevard where non-golfers drive by. Golfers understand the record of the golf industry environmentally and water-wise, but non-golfers don't. And since golfers represent about 7 to 8% of the population of California, non-golfers 92%, it's pretty easy to see who's going to carry public opinion, who wins elections, and who is the more important class of persons that we need to persuade of those things moving forward. The better news is that I think the California Alliance for Golf is probably more robust than it's ever been, is getting out in front of this issue. And I'm seeing encouraging signs that Arizona in particular, but I'm also hopeful that Nevada, and you're on this call as well as part of the Northern California section at least, and so are beginning to think in terms of some common themes and narratives of these three southwestern states that have we're a little bit different. Our politics are certainly different, but the issues of the environmental and water issues increasingly converging, and maybe it behooves us to get together and work at that basis. Just like we got together in California. I like Jamie's comments about the north and south section. The fact that he left this meeting to go out and see how things were going at something called the Southern California Golf Association Amateur Championship. And I'm from the Southern California Golf Association, and I'm all these calls, is probably an even stronger indicator. It's not just in California. It's not just that the PGA sections work together, but the PGA sections work very well with the amateur golf associations, and we all work with the golf course superintendents and the state ownership group as well. And I think that's going to put us in better and better stead moving forward. Enough on that subject. I am going to pivot a little bit back to COVID. KCRW, which is the national public radio outlet here in Los Angeles and beyond, it has a very strong bandwidth, did a 9-minute segment Tuesday on golf, COVID, the emergence, and part of that was about AB 672, the late great AB 672. Thank you to all of you who contacted your legislators. Our goal in dealing with that horrible bill, I'm not given to hyperbole or exaggeration. That's not the way I roll. But when I stated at the beginning of this year that AB 672 was the most potentially damaging bill for golf to be filed in the California legislature in my lifetime, you take a look at me, I've had a pretty long lifetime thus far, that I wasn't exaggerating. And the fact that we gave it the worst kind of reception any bill can get that gets filed, it never even made it to the agenda of the first committee of reference. It was double referred. Congratulations to all of you. That may mean it's going to come back in 2022, but it may mean that it comes back in a way that other legislators feel that this is not an area they want to get into, or a community perhaps that they want to engage. But the Assembly member who sponsored the bill, Christina Garcia, said a few words in the telecast, in the broadcast, and my response, and I was happy. You never know when you meet with a reporter and you talk for sometimes 40, 50 minutes, and you're on a tape recorder. It could be a television, it could be on radio, and then the editors go to work, and you realize you said a lot, and how they edit it goes a long way to how you look. But I was pleased with the comments we carried. But the vast majority of the story was about the boom, in the COVID boom, and the boom continuing in golf post. And as part of that, the reporter went out and interviewed at very busy public golf courses, two of them, Rancho Park in West Los Angeles and Brookside in Pasadena, and talked to some golfers that weren't golfers 2 years ago, or they hadn't been playing golf and they had come back to the game. And the interview, it was an extraordinarily positive story, because we heard from young persons and couples that said, well, they never really played golf. And then during the pandemic, it's the only thing you could do. So they decided to try it, and they're going to continue with it. They've fallen in love with it. They're playing it regularly. They're taking lessons. The reporter at Brookside talked to First Tee of Pasadena and discovered that they have more than doubled the best year of kids in the program than they've ever had. And their biggest problem is figuring out how to accommodate them. Talk to other golfers on an ad hoc basis. And the reason I'm going into great length is the only thing that was negative in the broadcast, even Assemblymember Christina Garcia's comments were not negative about golf. They were almost apologetic. She was saying, look, I represent park poor areas, and the only tracts of land available to solve the big housing problems are golf courses. So it was almost with apology that it's not something she didn't issue any nasty comments about the game or the kinds of things you may have suspected. It was just that among all the choices, this was my best one, and you're the sacrificial lamb. So even those comments weren't negative. And the one negative comment was from a golf professional. And I'm not going to name, but it proceeded when asked, everyone else asked on the telecast, including yours truly, is golf going to maintain that COVID bounty? Said yes, because a lot of people got introduced that maybe we couldn't bring to the game with our marketing campaigns because we were in competition with so many other things. But the reason we're gaining confidence that they're going to stay is because golf, is just as Jamie said, golf is a great game. It checks all the boxes. It does a whole host of things. And until you actually experience it, it's hard, mere descriptions that we put out in words or ads or commercials only go so far. Actually experiencing it keeps people in the game. I was very disappointed to hear the golf professional say, he didn't think it would hold up because golf is a very hard game. And then he proceeded to say it takes 6 to 7 hours to play. Now, one of the great things that's come out of COVID is that municipal courses finally discovered what we in golf have been telling them for years. If you do in 10-minute tee intervals, it takes 4 hours to 4 hours and 15 minutes to play, no matter when you play, which is why even though these municipal systems have the ability now under these public health orders to go to whatever interval they want, they're sticking with that because they've never done better in terms of, they haven't done this well in 30 years with their tee sheets. So that was disappointing to me because whether you know it or not, and some of you do and some of you don't listening on this call, you are the ambassadors of the game. You're the touch point that most golfers see and hear. They don't see me, they don't talk to me unless they have a big problem at the club, then I get the call. But on a day-to-day basis, golfers' touch point with the game is the pro, whether the pro is at their private club, whether it's at a resort or just a municipal golf facility. That's their contact point. They're going to chat you up in conversation, and what you say is going to have a disproportionate impact. They take lessons from you. They look to you as professionals for guidance about the game. And if we want to keep people in the game, I don't think it's not recognize that role and realize that telling beginning golfers that it is a hard game. We all know that. But as Jamie said, 33 handicaps have a great time playing this game because they made a couple of putts for bogeys and they hit a couple of fairways that they normally don't hit. And that's all part of the game as well. And you as pros, if you can reduce a 33 to a 19, that person will be eternally grateful. So let's not try to put people off to this game. And let's certainly not tell them it takes 6 to 7 hours to play when nothing could be further from the truth. So again, that was my only disappointment in the telecast, and I can't blame the reporter and so forth. And so keep that in mind and recognize not only it isn't so much it's a responsibility, but it's an incredible opportunity to be ambassador for the game and recognize that even though I too was riveted by listening to some of the thoughts and the observations and the way over the years, a really great golf teacher in Jamie Mulligan approaches teaching students. At the same time, recognize that the game is built on those 13 handicaps that I don't know, was Tom Addis talking about me? I'm gonna have a conversation with him after this. Yes, that they're the ones that join these clubs and come back day after day after day. And they're eternally grateful to people like you, because if you can get a 13 down into single digits with a little bit of coaching, and I prefer that to instruction, coaching, I like that verb, then they will always be looking to you for leadership and so forth. So with that, Len, I've talked a lot. I hope I addressed all the issues. I'm not going to talk about AB 1346. That's so technical. Just suffice it to say that those people who understand the technical details are getting our best available outcome in the state legislature. And the good news is we did meet with the author. And the good news on most things is, unlike 672, which really was a potential disaster, most of the things we deal with, we can trim around the edges and get good hearings. And in large part, because the one thing we've done extremely well, and I think one of the things that Arizona is looking a little bit to California for guidance, is that we positioned our industry a long time ago as not being obstructionist or opposed to anything, but actually in line with all of the goals and mandates, whether it's of the political community or the environmental community or the social community. It's just that we know best how to get to those goals in a way that's consistent with our ability to continue providing not just that great recreation you've heard about today and the competition, but also all the environmental advantages and the other advantages, not the least of which is the $13 billion of multiplier economic activity and the jobs and the benefits and so forth that we continue to provide. So with that, after a very long filibuster, I'd be happy to answer some questions or just to end the filibuster and give everyone a little on this call, just a little bit relief.
Thank you, Craig. And as Emmy put in the chat box, thanks so much for just updating us on what's happening around the state. It seems to be getting more and more complex as much as we try to keep it simple. But as you said, we fight the good fight, and really appreciate your words about the industry and everybody digging into to keep us active. So off you go. Go see Jamie and then have some fun this afternoon. So ladies and gentlemen, we'll start to wind down. And at this point, again, with thanks to Jamie Mulligan and Craig Kessler, and over the course of the past year and a half of doing our chats, so much thanks to the folks that have taken their time to be with us, some on very short notice, but I think it's just an indication of how we feel about our profession, how we feel about the game, our passion for it, and our want to always keep growing and keep getting better. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Southern California PGA, Mr. Tom Addis. Tom?
Yeah, Len, just call my name, call my name and I'll be there. No, appreciate everybody and appreciate Jamie, of course, taking his time, and Craig as usual. And Craig's information will continue to be valuable as time goes on here, especially going through the next year. Hopefully a rainy season, rainy season, so we can get back to normal in regards to water usage all around. So, but thanks to everybody again. Thanks to Robin and Dee Dee for being here, and Bryce for your help in production, and Len, of course, for hosting. I believe we're going to look at August 20th for the next chat. I know we said the first of each month, but when you look at the schedule and things that are going on, we'll end up a pick'em when it comes. It looks like when it comes to the Friday that we'll use. So appreciate all you being here, Len. Thank you, and let's everybody have a great and stay cool weekend.
Right. And thank you, Tom. And thank you all for joining us. Dee Dee, maybe a remark or two before we shut down?
No, thanks, Len. It was really great to be able to join today. I looked forward to it, and great information. Jamie, that was awesome. Thank you. And Craig, always good to hear the updates that you have for us. So hopefully we'll be able to tune in the next chats, and just hope everybody has a great weekend.
Okay, thank you, Dee Dee. And same here. Well done, everyone. Stay with it, stay healthy, stay close, stay together. And thank you for everything that you've done. And we will see you on, and there's our good friend, Jeff Johnson. Thank you, Jeff. We'll see you on August 20. Yeah.
Bye, everybody.